So I am delighted to welcome all of you to this evening's program, and especially delighted to welcome Kim Eppehimer, who is the Executive Director of Friendship House, who is going to share with us a number of really exciting things that are happening with Friendship House and with a number of the initiatives and programs that are underway. Let me see, Kim, if I can ask you to unmute so that you will actually, there you go. Hopefully you will be, for some reason we're seeing Sally Butner, and I'm not just sure why that is. Let's try this again. And I do have the ability to edit out the start of the program.
Excellent. I thought you were going to say you can edit out all my mistakes because I was going to give you the list.
No, there won't be. Okay. Yeah, there won't be any of those. All right. So welcome, Kim. So glad to have you here. And we're looking forward to hearing about all the wonderful things you have to share.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Are you going to start with the video, Sue?
If you would like me to do that, I
can give a very brief intro. So for those of you who may be aware, one of the things that inspired this, and I was so touched when Sue reached out for me on this. She saw the documentary that was put out for the Hope Center, the Newcastle County Hope Center. And it's up for an Emmy. The production team that put the documentary together is up for an Emmy nomination. It's one that's not the national large one, but it's still a pretty big deal. So I'm in an Emmy nominated documentary. Sue suggested that we'd share it with this group. And then after that, I will speak briefly on how we got to the Hope Center and a little bit about our exit and just give you the highlights of all that has been happening at Friendship House really since 2020 up to what we're doing now, because it's never a dull moment when it comes to Friendship House. So I'm just really excited to be here. And then I'll turn it back to Sue to start the show.
In the most advanced developed society that Earth has ever seen, it amazes me that we haven't figured out how to house, clothe, provide quality, nutritious food to everyone. These are solvable problems, and we need to approach them as problems that can be solved.
There are misconceptions about who our homeless fellow citizens are.
If you have an eviction or a criminal or credit issue, it is going to be a major, major hardship. And that's made it so they can't find housing.
When you see families, you see a mother with children, you see a mother and father with children, you get a whole different perspective of what the homeless population looks like.
We're in the top 20 of the states with the worst case of affordable housing.
Near the end of 2020, we were losing the stock of readily available housing options for homeless Delawareans. We were in a challenging place.
We have a gap, or in other words, an unmet need for 50,000 additional units. On any given night in Delaware, there are between 1,000 and 1,300 people experiencing homelessness. 25% of them are children under the age of 18. If you're an individual who's Black or African American in our state, you are 4 times more likely to experience homelessness than an individual who's white. If you are a family with children with a Black or African American head of household, you are 8 times more likely to experience homelessness. We're a small state. We have people who care. We have the resources. This is solvable.
Those in favor say aye. The ayes have it.
In March of 2020, the pandemic was just really taking off. The Congress of the United States shut down and all of us went home.
Bars, restaurants, food courts, gyms should be closed.
When we reconvened and had briefings on just how bad this was going to be, we did something I've never seen. We wrote an 800-page bill that delivered $2.3 trillion in aid.
These funds, in many cases, in many jurisdictions, were 5 times, 10 times what they would normally receive in any given year.
Homeless Americans live at the margins of our society. There's a lot of different reasons why they're homeless, and there's a lot of different challenges in providing meaningful transition back to being housed.
It's not just about the funding, it's about the political will. When you have the right people in place and the right leaders in place with the vision to make it happen, it can happen.
And that bill passed unanimously.
The motion is adopted.
When you're working in a system that is traditionally under-resourced, it's really hard to scale up and be able to leverage those funds to really do the work, but we're here now and it's really exciting.
County Executive Meyer had put a few of us on a committee on how to assist the most vulnerable with this coronavirus relief funds that Newcastle County had received. When the libraries, coffee shops, even homeless day centers closed, we realized that people were congregating in front of those locations because they had nowhere to go. This population was really forgotten. And then once winter began to approach, we realized Code Purple shelter, when it's really cold, people just show up and sleep somewhere. Church basements with elderly volunteers making meals was not going to happen. And people were literally not accessing shelter at all. They were staying outside, camping, sleeping in their cars because there were no shelter availability and there was no place for them to go at night or during the day.
With the Federal CARES Act dollars, there have been really significant increases in funding to address homelessness, specifically through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Funds particularly set aside to help emergency shelters, congregate shelters maintain safety and stay open during the pandemic, as well as funds to help folks and families experiencing homelessness move quickly back into permanent housing.
We looked at California's model, where they've spent about $700 million of their coronavirus relief funds on purchasing hotels up and down the state. And then on September 12th, the Sheraton Wilmington South was going up for auction at the end of October. We began to talk to really anybody that would listen to us about how awesome it would be if the county purchased this hotel, never really imagining that they would do it.
Right away, the county executive was on board with this, so we went and we won the bid for $19 million plus, and it became our hotel. On December 15th, we started the hotel with our residents, 73 people who were homeless, and they became the first residents of what is now the Hope Center.
I was a teacher. I was living in Vietnam for the last 12 years. Unfortunately, I had a stroke, so I had to come back home for medical care. The Hope Centers really helped me get organized, get me back into the swing of living in America.
The name the Hope Center fits because it gives you hope. You know, it gives you hope for a better day. They really take care of you here. I've never experienced anything like this before, and it's good.
They help you grow back into what you need to do. It really took a scary time in my life and created such a positive environment for me that I'm doing well.
They do anything for the kids. They try to keep them active. They have books, baby dolls, anything that you could need for your kid, they have.
It's really an amazing outpouring of humanity and caring, love and caring. I feel like I'm moving, I'm living again, rather than just spiraling out of control. They provide help for everyone to move forward in their lives. They're like angels. They really are angels. Yeah.
I've been through a lot of ownership changes and people purchasing buildings. And when I heard Newcastle County was purchasing the building, I was like, that's never going to happen. And then it happened.
This is the best possible outcome for this hotel. which really never should have been built on that site. It was built bigger than it should have been. It was built in a place that never should have been filled in. It was in and out of court. It was in and out of being closed. There was a lot of litigation around it.
A lot of the folks that have come here have often been through what we call survival mode. They are focused on making sure their most immediate needs are met. If they don't know that they're going to have food for that day, or if they're not aware that they're going to be able to have a safe place to live that night, they're going to do all that they can to make sure they have what they need to survive. And that's not something to easily turn off. This population is worthy of this. It's hard to hear people disparage this population, especially what they've been through. And I hope that we don't go back to what it was like before the pandemic.
My heart really lies in taking care of people. It's still guests coming in every single day. We're still treating them just as guests. Any needs that they have, we handle. And I'm dealing with all these great new people that I would never have been working with.
Being able to be in public housing gave me and my sisters an opportunity to be safe, to be able to learn. It allowed my dad, to be the first in his family to graduate from high school, the first to graduate from college.
When I walked in there and saw this beautiful state-of-the-art former hotel that is now a center for transitional housing that will serve thousands of homeless Delawareans and then move them forward, I think this is just the perfect way for this building to end up being an amazing resource for our community.
The first day we opened, one gentleman walked in with his partner and he's like, "It's great to be back." And he explained that he was an iron worker, worked on the hotel. He blew out his knee, had surgery, got on painkillers. Next thing you know, he's addicted to substances. His life, as he said, spiraled out of control. And here he is.
I think that survival mode is hard to get out of. It's not an overnight, I'm fine, let me go find a job. I'm not going to drink anymore, I'm not going to do drugs.
It's not as simple as saying, if we just addressed alcoholism, homelessness would go away. It's very hard to speak in broad platitudes like that.
If you're in a traditional homeless shelter, they wake you up, they get you out 6 o'clock in the morning. If you're at the Hope Center, this is where you're living, as if I were to check into the Sheraton.
Some come not knowing what their next step is going to be. You have some who have been in and out of houselessness enough to understand what the process might look like. So you really meet people at various levels of where they are on their journey.
We have now, I think a couple of weeks ago, we had 238 residents, and over 100 of those residents are children.
Connecting people to resources where they're being treated with dignity and listened to, I think that also is a big piece of getting out of survival mode. They're spending a half an hour talking to me about my health issues and connecting me to other doctors and behavioral health stuff.
They make sure you have all your doctor appointments. They make sure you have food, mental health issues. I think they're tackling one of the toughest things to battle is addiction, and it's an everyday thing, fighting it.
We have permanent space for counseling, for mental illness, for addictions.
Let's get you connected with the case manager. Let's get you connected to the doctor. And our case workers have a sense of where to meet people where they are and start figuring out what their goals and plans are if they have them. I think this is a very good example of government working very well.
I hope this place stays open after the pandemic. After people experience this and they really understand what real care feels like, it's going to be hard to go back.
Now we have the ability to help them get to their next step, help them secure housing, help them overcome drug and alcohol dependencies, help them, to remain on their meds, get them counseling and the help that they need.
Are we just gonna say we're protecting the most vulnerable? Or are we really gonna dedicate resources to do it? It's ultimately the wraparound services, I believe, that are gonna support people to have a leg to stand on.
We have to move away from managing the crisis of homelessness to solving it.
One thing I've learned from this experience is that if you have the right team and the right strategy, we can start to make headway at solving some of these problems.
Seeing the joy and the appreciation that they have to know that people cared enough to purchase a hotel to keep them safe, and then while they're here, provide them with all the services and the tools necessary to give them a second chance at life and living it to their best potential. That's priceless.
This is my house. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I just moved in about 3 weeks ago. Due to COVID, I was homeless. And I have 3 kids with autism, and I have 5 kids total. I moved from the Hope Center. Everything is there at the center. We got connected with medical. We got connected with Autism of Delaware. We got connected with summer school. I got a job with Amazon, which was awesome. And then all these services work together to make it better before it gets worse. When I went in there, my goal was housing, and I'm so glad to be moved in. I can cook again.
If you see a person who is homeless, the only thing that's different between them and you is that they currently do not have a home. That's it.
The first step to creating something like the Hope Center is empathy, is caring for each other.
It's families, it's individuals, it's people with disabilities, it's people of all backgrounds, races, creeds, and colors.
I think anybody can come here and find a pathway home.
Thank you, Sue. Ooh, I had to turn the camera off. I got all misty-eyed during that. It has been a while since I've seen it, and it definitely gets you at the heart. All right, so I am going to go ahead and share my screen as well. I have a PowerPoint or Google Slides so that you have something to look at that isn't me. So let me get that set up, and then I will share some more. All right. So a couple of things I want to note very quickly is in the film, they interviewed a gentleman named Robert, who at the time of the filming, when it ended, he was still living at the Hope Center, but only in the past couple of months, he's actually moved out and has found stable housing. So we're really excited for him. He's doing amazing. And I was very tickled that they used our tagline and my final phrases for the name of the video. That was not planned at the time. And so it was very touching. So here we go. A little bit about Friendship House, because I just want to make sure you all are aware that we are now a statewide organization, which I will chat about briefly, continuing to connect people to needed resources. We've been around for 35 years, and largely thanks to Westminster Presbyterian Church, who was one of the founding churches of Friendship House. And we have several programs that really focus on people who are experiencing homelessness, houselessness, those that have financial barriers and just need extra help breaking down the barriers that are keeping them from where they want to go, because it's really about the individual. We have more than 30 staff, 1,000 volunteers, and we remain a strong coalition of the faith community. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about the Hope Center and how we got there. Some of you may know the story. The Hope Center, as you heard, was an immediate response to the COVID pandemic. Right as COVID hit, there was an increased demand on shelter, especially as many of the shelters had to limit who could come in due to space. And so as you learned watching the video, and if you've ever heard us talk about it, there were not enough resources and places for people to go who are experiencing houselessness. They were desperately looking for things. One of the things that Friendship House did early on was put about 100 people actually in motels and hotels with the help of funding from grants, faith community, and donors for about 90 days until we got the state service centers to take that over and continue paying that. The Hope Center for us was critical because it was purchased in time to cover our needs for Code Purple. Our Code Purple programming is designed to help expand shelter space for people when it's bitter cold at night. And we do Code Purple in Wilmington, Newark, and Middletown in Newcastle County. Winter of 2020, though, we were unable to do our Code Purple program because we rely on the faith community to open their space for us to expand that shelter system. And during that winter, all of the churches were closed, and they pretty much said, please don't ask us because we don't want to have to tell you no. And so we had no idea how we were going to run our Code Purple program, and probably one of the most important winters that we had to do Code Purple. When I expressed this concern to our county, and very specifically to Carrie Casey, she came back to me after several conversations and said, what if we purchased a hotel? Would you want to run Code Purple out of that? And I said, yes, and the board agreed. So our agreement was that we would stay for 4 months just to get through winter. And then their plan was always to send out a request for a proposal to have this a bidded program because they're using HUD funding. So we agreed to do this. We started with, as you heard in the video, 73 people specifically and some dogs. And then after those 4 months, we had a conversation with the county, and they asked us if we'd be willing to stay because the program was going pretty strong. And it was clear the pandemic was still raging at that time. And people were really used to us being there, and they didn't want to have a transition. So we agreed that we would stay. And we did, and we stayed until February 2022. And during that time, we served hundreds of people. There were about 1,000 people that had come into the Hope Center, and many that had successfully found housing outside of the Hope Center. The folks that we had originally brought in, many of them got to stay, and they experienced something that many of them had never experienced: time and support. And those two things mixed together was transformational in ways that we could never have ever done without this program. Not all of them found housing, but many that we never thought would get stable did. So we decided it was time to leave. The county was ready to go ahead and do an official request for bid as they had always promised, and they asked us to put a bid in. we really discussed this largely at the board level, the staff level. We decided it was time to go because we could see on the horizon there were lots of things coming, and we weren't sure we would have the resources and ability to respond. And we felt certain that the Hope Center could find a good and right organization to take over what we were doing. And we were right on both accounts. Things have gotten very difficult in our community, and we were able to respond. And they found some great people to continue the amazing program at the Hope Center. It remains very much open. Some people think that it's not, and it is doing amazing things. We're very, very, very proud to be part of its history. So Friendship House's mission is to unite people facing homelessness with loving, supportive communities they can call home. And as many of you know, when I talk about who we are, I like to differentiate that we define homelessness and houselessness differently. Homelessness is really that disconnection from community. It's when you don't have someone or people to rely on when you're suffering something significant like houselessness or substance abuse or mental illness or lack of money or fill in the blank. And you can't turn to someone to help you. To us, that's homelessness. That's when you don't have a loving, supportive community that you get to call home. Where houselessness is that lack of physical space that you get to call yours. And so our programs connect these two things often, where we may be focusing a lot on homelessness because we're such a relational organization. Our programs truly do address lifting the barriers for both homelessness and houselessness. So briefly, just some about our programs, just in case you aren't aware, we do have a transitional housing program that's really designed for people who need more time. So they have suffered something traumatic that has caused homelessness and houselessness, and they aren't in a position where they're ready to go back into society. One of the best examples is a substance abuse disorder. So folks who suffer from substance abuse get some time in inpatient treatment, but they don't get a lot of time. And by the time that that is up, their insurance has done paying for it, they're not ready to live either back with family or they can't afford to live on their own. And they can have the option to come live with us. People who have recently come out of incarceration is another example. So we give them time and support in order to be able to navigate this new way that they're trying to live and become self-sufficient. We have financial assistance, which is something I'll talk about more because this has been so impacted by COVID. Financial assistance is designed to help remove financial barriers for people so they can regain a house or a way of living that's no longer in a shelter or dependent on state funding. The clothing bank has three main purposes. We give clothing free to the community. It is a wonderful place to come and volunteer. And it is a job training and a life coach program for women who are incarcerated or in a transitional housing program like ours. And then we have the empowerment centers where we have many of them, primarily in Newcastle, but you'll hear how we've expanded that in just a moment. And our empowerment centers are designed to be a drop-in location for anybody needing anything, honestly. They could come in for coffee, for bathroom use, computer lab, but they also can come in for holistic case management, where they're really looking to get to that next step. They either need help navigating state service programs, or they need help getting an ID or a birth certificate so they can access such services. We will work with someone as long as they need us to work with them. There's no time limit. And often, even when someone has regained their footing and they are living self-sufficiently, we remain their community. In all of these programs, people consistently come back to us to either volunteer, to just say hi, or to donate. So it's pretty powerful, and our programs have proven to be very successful. So I want to talk what has been going on with Friendship House since March of 2020, and it has been quite a lot that has happened. So one of the things that has happened is we've opened 2 new empowerment centers, one in Newcastle County, and then we also have one now in Kent County in Dover, and a mobile unit in Sussex. And so we are now officially statewide using our Empowerment Center programming. And this is largely due to actually the last bullet that's on here. And I'll get to that. Let me stay in order. We have also added 2 new houses to our transitional housing program. One is the one that Westminster purchased about a year and a half ago and invited us to run our housing program out of it. And that's Clark House. And it is doing amazing things. It is part of our men's housing program. And it currently houses, I believe, 9 men. And they are just constantly a great group of men who are moving on, doing fantastic things. The other house that we purchased was through a partnership with Christiana Care, who wants to work with us to get people out of the ER or out of their hospital who are only there because they have nowhere to go. And also they find that folks who do get medical care, if they have to exit out to a shelter where they're forced out during the day, all that medical care they got ends up getting undone. So we started a program with them where those that qualify for our housing program can then enter the housing program. And it's been a really positive experience for both us and the folks that we're working with. We're also doing this at the Hope Center. So we haven't completely cut ties at the Hope Center, but Christiana Care through us can put people at the Hope Center. And then while they provide medical care, we provide the case management. We have started a fines and fees fund in partnership with the Campaign to End Debtors Prison, which I know many of you know about and have contributed to. So I'm so grateful for that. And it's designed to help lift legal barriers for folks who cannot afford to lift those barriers on their own, therefore resulting in a debtor's prison. They can't get out of it because they can't get the income they need to move forward. And this is largely because once they have this fine and fee that's connected to them, they get other repercussions out of their control. They might lose their driver's license, they might lose their housing, and that has awful ramifications on their ability to stay employed. So by us lifting that barrier, it's a significant barrier to people being able to become self-sufficient. During this time, we also started a new school uniform project through our clothing bank. And this has been an amazing opportunity for us and the community to really serve our children. It started with us working with, and I'm going to get the numbers wrong, Cheryl, but there were about 6 or 7 schools that we started with last year. And our goal was to get out 5,000 units to 5,000 clothing items to them. What we mean by school uniform is it's very simple. It's schools that require a plain polo shirt and khaki bottoms. And these are public schools that we're working with or charter schools that are in the county. This year, we worked with 15 schools and almost hit our goal of 10,000 items. It was over 8,000 school uniform items that we handed out to the community. And that was largely because of our faith community supporting us so strongly. Unfortunately, last year, we got hit by a horrible hurricane, and we have another one raging up our coast as we speak. Hurricane Ida hit Wilmington, and it was terrible. I think many of you can remember how instantly people lost their homes. So we stepped in. You all helped. Westminster provided us funding to do so, where we could say on that day, what do you need? How can we help? We provided clothing, necessities, and we even put people in hotels. Most of the folks have found stable housing, but there are still people that are in a hotel that are unable to find affordable housing for themselves, or they're waiting for their home to get repaired. And then the other thing that happened was this May, there's apartments called the Adams Street Apartments, and they were condemned literally overnight. The residents had no idea this was going to happen. The city showed up and told them, you can't live here anymore, which if you've ever seen them, they are condemnable. It is inhumane what this landlord has done. So we were there and we helped house these folks. We have helped pay for storage. We've helped them with their incidentals, their necessities, and casework. And we've helped trying to connect them to needed resources to get them back on their feet. And of course, during all of this, we started the Newcastle County Hope Center program. So the thing that's happening now, which has taken us statewide, that I just have to consistently bring attention to, So there are hundreds of households throughout our state that are losing their hotel voucher through the state service center program. They were all there because of pandemic funding, and that funding came to an end. They announced this in early August, and when they announced this and they didn't have a really solid plan of how they were going to help, we immediately stepped in and said, we're here to help you. What can we do? So we've been partnering with the state service centers statewide. They've been helping us connect to people that need assistance. And we've been working since August to try to get these folks, get their barriers lifted so they can try to find housing. Unfortunately, we can't do it with such short amount of time. Fortunately, they did extend it to by 30 days. It was originally August 31st that they were to move out. They gave them another 30 days, which ends this Saturday. There's still a few hundred households that are in hotels that will be losing that housing come Saturday. We don't know how many have a place to go. Not all are sure, and not all are sharing, because I think some are holding out hope there might be another extension. And unfortunately, there isn't one. So we've been working really closely on trying to get them connected to any resource they can. They know how to get hold of us. And it's been a significant project taking up a lot of our time, but it has been really important that we've been able to be vocal and be there for folks who are losing this critical resource. And so we are doing that. And the largest group affected, I need to add, is in Sussex County, which is why we are having a mobile unit down there to work with folks. So we've increased our staffing. We've been begging for money to help fund this so that we can help people. We are extending a couple of the hotel stays for our folks. And we're, again, lifting those barriers that they need to. We just spoke to somebody this week who's been stuck for 2 reasons. 3, if you include the judgment, but 2 that we can help with. 1, he has 2 capiases that he can't lift. It won't cost much for us to lift them, so we're going to pay them off. But one of the reasons he wouldn't go to court to show his face is he was so scared to leave his wife, who has been in and out of the hospital nonstop. So this week, in fact, today, I handed the money orders to the caseworker who handed them to him. So he knows he can go in with the money he needs to pay off those fines and get those capias lifted. The other issue that he had was that, I'm completely blanking on what it was. I'm so sorry. It was the capias. Oh, he needed a mail PO box, forgive me. He needed to send away for an important vital statistic, a document that he needed, but knowing he was leaving the place that he's in, he couldn't use that address. He couldn't risk that mail coming to him there. And so that's been holding up his progress for several weeks now. So we have a PO box we can use for any of our clients, and we've signed him up for that so that he actually can receive this last piece of mail that he needs. For us, these are simple things we can do because we have the system, we have the support, we have the funding. But the problem is we're not always connected to the folks that need these services. So we're very happy to be able to get connected to some, but we're not connected to everybody. And then one other thing that's not on here that I'm happy to share is we actually have yet a 3rd house that we are bringing on in about a month's time. And this is the last thing I'll share, and then I'll shush and let you all ask questions. But we have got funding to purchase a house that is dedicated to the women that work at our clothing bank. So the women that work at our clothing bank, 90% of the time are in a program called Work Release that's sponsored by the Department of Corrections. They start their day in prison, they come work for us, and then they end their day at prison. And what we have found is that the women that exit incarceration who are working for us, if they don't have a stable housing option, even somewhat unstable of a housing option, then they will fail 100% of the time. And what we mean by fail is they'll go back to homelessness or houselessness. They might go back to prison. They might go back to substance abuse, and they usually do not show up at work anymore, or it's very inconsistent and they're very unstable. We couldn't stomach that anymore. So we applied for a grant. We achieved getting that grant and we bought a house. And our housing director and our clothing bank director are working together to create a program so these women can come into our housing program. So I'm very, very excited about that. So that is a lot of stuff that we've been doing over the past 2.5 years. Our budget has increased by over $1 million. Our financial assistance program, which used to be about $130,000 program, is now over $300,000 every year. It is phenomenal what the need is, and it is humbling and amazing that we've been able to respond all because of you. A reminder that outside of the Hope Center, Friendship House does not do government funding. We are dependent on individual donors, the faith community, foundation grants, and businesses. And that is what has carried us the past 3 years and will continue to carry us in the future. And we cannot be more grateful for that. So how to get involved? Of course, we love our volunteers. As you heard me say earlier, we have over 1,000 volunteers that support us every year. And many of you already do, but there's always more opportunities. And if you haven't volunteered with us, please, please do. And we always need monetary donations, in-kind donations. As winter comes, we're going to need more coffee. We're going to need the underwear and socks and hats and mittens and gloves. So you can visit our website to learn more, and I'll make sure that gets into the chat. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. I love questions, so if you have any, please ask. I know that was a lot of information. I tried not to go too quickly, and if you can't take yourself off mute, Sue can probably help with that, or you can use the chat box.
I can do that, I think. Please, if you have a comment or a question, it would be great if you go down at the bottom of your screen under reactions, and there's something you can click that says raise hand. And when you do that, it moves you to the upper top left of the screen. That makes it easy to see that you have a question or a comment. If for some reason you can't make that technology work because it's not always the most cooperative, feel free to just, like wave your hand, and we're happy to call on you. So the floor is open. Thank you so much, Kim. That video is so moving. I've watched it 4 times, and probably not as many as you, but I find it a very emotional experience each time, as I think we get to a closer view, a closer connection, the opportunity to feel a degree of empathy for people who, there but for the grace of God, could be you or I. So thank you for that. We hope you win the Emmy, but if we had a chance to vote, we would. So anyway, the floor is open.
I'll call on people if you don't ask.
Yeah, watch out. Yeah, sitting in the back of the classroom is not going to protect you from Kim's attention.
Well, if there aren't questions, I will say we do have a couple of staff members that are here, and I just want to call them out because I'm just so tickled that they came. So Robin, who is the manager of our Middletown Empowerment Center, is here. Cheryl Bryant, who is the director of our clothing bank, and Cassandra Bryant, who is our volunteer coordinator. Great time to sign up for volunteering. And she also manages a lot of our communications and social media, which we are grateful for. And we have a couple board members here, and I'm very, very touched that you all spent your evening. Thank you for coming. And any of the board members that want to share, please feel free. Robin, I saw you come off mute. Did you want to say something?
No, I must have hit it by accident.
Oh, I put you on the spot.
No, yeah, but thank you. This was great. Thanks for the invite.
Of course. Lynn, I see you have your hand raised.
Sure. I just thought, love to hear what you think things will actually end up looking like come Saturday, when so many of these folks are no longer going to have their funding. I mean, I know you guys are ready to help, but what is your best guess as to what it's actually going to end up looking like?
I admit I'm very concerned. I think what's concerning me most is that we might have a tropical storm that day. So I was pretty dismayed when they extended it, that it did hit on a Saturday, because a lot of services are closed. So I am going to give credit to the state service centers. They have been working very hard And many of them are going to be available, maybe not on site, but they are going to be in a central location so they can respond. Their hotline's going to be open. So they have really worked very diligently to do all that they can do within their resources to try to cover that day. But at the end of the day, it is lack of resources. One of the difficulties, and I will kind of get more to your answer, Lynn, or answer your question, but one of the difficulties with this, we extended shelter by having more hotel rooms available for folks. And as soon as you extend and expand on shelter, you will fill it. We will never have enough shelter. That is just the rule of the needs of our community. And now that we need to bring that back, there's nowhere for them to go. Our shelter system is completely full and the system is deeply stressed. Now, the good news is for emergency shelter, the Sunday Breakfast Mission is always open. They have already said, bring them, we'll take them. So that is one thing we know. But if you're in Sussex, even if you're in Kent, that's your home. You don't want to travel 2 hours north to a new area, especially to Wilmington, which has some interesting, history to folks, so that's a big ask for folks to do. So I am concerned. I imagine, Lynn, that come Saturday, there will be people who will go back to camping and they'll be doing it in rain. There are tents that have been getting handed out left and right. There are people that are on call. There will be behavioral health folks there. There will be medical assistants, and we will do our best. But the hardest part for me personally on this, there is no perfect answer. We have to pull back. The state has to pull back on resources. We are close to that cliff that we all are hearing about, that the pandemic relief funds are being exhausted and the after effect is going to be significant. So it is going to be concerning. My hope, and I'm going to hang on to this, is that a lot of people are going to use their last resort option. My hope is that there will be family that even though they may not get along and it may not be the best situation for them, it will be better than spending the weekend in the rain on the streets. So I'm really hoping that people do take the resources that are available, even if they're not good resources, for their safety. So pray for no rain. Thank you for that, Lynn.
Kim, I'm wondering if, I think one of your burger dots, if you will, talked about group volunteer possibilities or group volunteer activity. And I'm wondering, as you develop the new housing program and the new creating excellent outcomes from the clothing bank, what would be an example of a group activity in your new area with regard to women that have been incarcerated and are finding their way back into the community?
Yeah, thanks for that, Bill. So there will always be opportunities at the clothing bank directly. And I push that because that's one of the best ways to get to know the women that are employed there. You get to work directly next to them and you get to know them and hear their stories. And even one of the employees there has her own story as she came through not only our housing program, but also the clothing bank. So that is a great opportunity. And you can do that as a group or individual. And even while you're there, there might be opportunities depending on your skill set to work directly with the women as they're working through their own struggles to become self-sufficient. In relation to the new house, we are not 100% sure what all of the connections are going to be. We are fine-tuning the program. But if I would guess some of the opportunities would be, there'd be some mentoring opportunities, there'd be some hand-holding opportunities. The reason that this is needed is the women that are coming out of this program have not really experienced traditional programming. So they're not used to that boundary, to that sense of communal living, to the expectations, while also having some freedom. All of that in one. And that's why we're filling this gap for them. So encouraging them, reminding them, being a friend to them is all something that are good opportunities. And kind of leaning on Bill, our history, I would say this might be an interesting opportunity for Stephen ministers. They may or may not be comfortable in a one-on-one setting, but they might be comfortable in more of a small group setting with somebody who wants to just be that love support. Some of them are praying folks. They might enjoy having someone praying with them. But this transition from incarceration, even if it's into a program, can be significant and slightly traumatic depending on their history and what it triggers for them. So I think there might be some opportunities in that as well. So Bill, happy to get you connected, or anyone that is interested in this. I think there'll be some fun things, and it's a new house, so we're going to need repairs. And I know you all have an amazing Fix-It core, so I might be leaning on them.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
have a couple of Fix-It core people here who can put
I
that
know.
on their list of things to do.
Right, Roger?
Right, Roger?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, okay, good.
Well, I'd have to say, as we speak, my neighbor next door, who is on the Fix-It core, packed up, Cheryl, you'll be so happy. He packed up his pickup truck with large boxes of socks that we got from Bombas. I'll send you the picture, Cheryl, and he'll be driving them in tomorrow. So your angels in your church are always amazing, doing fantastic stuff, which I am so grateful for. Connie, I think I saw your hand, and then Sue will pop to you. Go ahead, Connie.
All right, so your new house, will that have opportunities for meals for volunteers?
Yes, we think so. Those of you that come to Epiphany House, its size, and putting 2, 3, 4 more bodies in that just might not work. So we are trying to figure out that we don't want to stress our volunteers either, meaning, we are grateful for what we get out of everybody. And to say we've got another 365 days that need to be covered by food, we'll have to see what's available. But if that is something that anyone is interested in, please do let us know. If nothing else, helping to stock food so they can start feeding themselves will be really important. So even if it's a week's worth of groceries until they get their food stamps and things like that could be really useful. And Connie, we might be able to use you for some cooking lessons. So we'll see, huh?
Yeah, let me know.
Yes. Sue, I saw you raise your hand.
Oh, I just wanted to give you a shout out. I worked with the clothing bank, and I'm not sure if I talked to Cheryl or if it was somebody else there, because I'm a rapid rehousing case manager over at the Salvation Army. And so you clothed an entire family. I packed up my car and kind of had a low rider all the way over to their house, car full of clothing, just a simple request. So that was well appreciated. And often whenever I get a new client, we're looking for documents so we can get them signed up for benefits. And half the time they say, oh, I'm working with somebody over at Friendship House who's already helping me with that. So we work together, and you're well known in the community and already helping half my clients when they're walking in the door.
Oh, Sue, thank you so much for that. And I didn't realize that's what you did. Thank you so much for what you do. That program is saving lives. So thank you.
And I don't know, I may have missed it if you've said this already, but yes, the Sunday breakfast mission does take walk-ins, but what's not commonly known is now there are wait lists through most of the other shelters. It's a central intake. So there are wait lists for all of the shelters these days, especially now that the hotel vouchers are going away abruptly. So they're prioritizing. It may be people that are experiencing domestic violence or with children, but there was a time not long ago that you just contacted the Housing Alliance, and they would connect you and you'd go to whatever shelter had availability, but it's not like that right now.
It is not. Yes, it is a deeply stressed system. And you said it exactly. The wait lists are extreme. And even folks who provide rapid rehousing are tapped out, and the funding is coming to an end in a time when we're approaching winter. So it is a very difficult time. And I think some of you have maybe heard me say that even 2 years ago, I said, we will still be dealing with the ramifications of the pandemic well into 2023. And now that we're here, I'm quite anxious that that could be well into 2025. It is just daunting, the impacts that some of the decisions that were made, what they're having on folks, even though they were made in crisis and some of them were good at the time, we're now seeing that play out. It is daunting. So Anastasia, I see your hand is raised.
I just wanted to comment that I had volunteered at the clothing bank with a group of other board members, and we had an absolute blast. Cheryl will knock your socks off with her passion and enthusiasm. I was just blown away by how much is done there. And so I would highly recommend, either as an individual or as a group, going down to give her a visit. But I wanted to ask you a question. I know that there are some people that are doing drives at their individual businesses for certain items, perhaps maybe toiletries or socks, or do you have any suggestions on how someone might do something like that at their place of business, and what they might say, what would be a good item or items that you think would be, supportive for the community and also easy for people to kind of get their hands on and drop off?
Yes, yes, yes. And I have to say, I love that question, Anastasia. Thank you, because pre-COVID, we barely had to buy coffee. A lot of our paper products were taken care of because our faith communities and businesses love to do item drives. It was a relatively easy way to engage people, especially if you have a large group. You could spend $15 and get 3 things and feel really good about it and really help us out. That stopped with the pandemic, except for when we got so many amazing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right, Sandy? It was quite the adventure. So it switched to pandemic needs only, and we haven't gotten that level of giving and doing those item drives back. So we're going to try to really push that, because it is phenomenal now that we realize how much coffee we have to buy, the gift that was. So Anastasia, that's a great question. To engage, it's pretty simple, and we actually will help. So we will give you marketing materials if you want them. We'll help you with social media posts. We can hold your hand if it's business or a faith community. For usually our churches, you put it out in your newsletter, you put it on social media, it's announced as a minute for mission or is said at the pulpit, and it's just a lot of saying it. And usually you want to do it over a couple of weeks. And then we might be able to come pick up the items if it can't be delivered. So we try to make it very easy for anyone who wants to do that. The items I would push the most right now, and I've said it, I'm going to say it again, coffee. We go through, and ground coffee. Someone actually wanted to give me beans. I said, I can't. We go through an amazing amount of coffee with our folks. It is the necessity that many people need and something that is easily overlooked. Our empowerment centers, it's the first thing they come in and they grab a cup of coffee. So coffee is huge. And with that, creamer and sugar. Because when I say that they drink coffee, what I mean is they drink creamer and sugar with a splash of coffee. And then sometimes tea bags. We don't have as many tea drinkers, but we do have tea drinkers. So those 4 things with winter, it's an easy thing to do. Most people buy coffee in the store. So getting a second bag is easy. Could care less the brand. You can get the cheap Folgers stuff. I am 1000% fine with that. No offense to Folgers drinkers. I am a coffee snob. So bring in whatever you can on that. And then if that's not of interest, on the flip side, thinking about winter, it's underwear, socks, gloves, and hats. But underwear and socks underwear, we just got 10,000 socks, right, Sheriff from Bombas? But we never have enough through winter. It gets really dangerous when their feet get wet. And if they don't have fresh socks, they risk frostbite. And let me tell you, the shoes are not good. They have holes in them. So they will layer their socks. I have seen clients literally saran wrap or put plastic around their feet, which is incredibly dangerous. So really good socks is something that we go through tremendously during winter. And we prefer new underwear and new socks. So thank you, Anastasia. And I would focus on those. And if you want any other ideas, I'm going to put volunteer, the email address for Cassandra in the chat. It's volunteer@friendshiphousedE.org. And she can help you, whatever you think you might want to do. I can promise you, we will help you make it happen. And she is amazing at helping you get there.
I'm so grateful for this and for the conversation. I know that Westminster, certainly by our Urban Mission Committee that is focused on outreach in the local community, and has partnered with Friendship House since the very beginning, late 1980s, I think. Our first transitional
1987.
house was in 1990, Burton House. And we believe that now that COVID is loosening up a bit and people are more willing to be out and about, that offering and encouraging and engaging people in active volunteer person-to-person connection is really, really important, both for the volunteer and for the partner with whom they work. So we'll be doing some investigation to see what might those one-on-one or group-on-one or one-on-group opportunities might they be. I think your Stephen Ministry suggestion is an excellent one, and we will pass that along. And we will look for other ways that we can invite someone, come with me, which we know is the best way to encourage volunteers. So we promise that we will work hard on that. So I really want to thank Kim and her staff and board members who are here tonight, and all of the rest of you who've taken this time. This evening's program has been recorded, and it will be available on Westminster's YouTube channel. We find that a lot of people watch these programs when it happens that Thursday evening at 7 isn't convenient. And we would also ask each of you who heard this story, share the video, send the link to people that you know, that you think would be touched by it, moved by it, encouraged by it. Share the work, the essential work that's going on. Keep people up to date. Pray for those who are in such dire need of assistance. And we will do whatever we can to reach out, to show empathy and caring and make a difference in the lives of so many people who just need a little bit of home and help and care. Cheryl, did you have a final word or two you'd like to share?
Quick. You were talking about volunteer opportunities, and I just wanted to let you in on a secret. Not really a secret, we just haven't publicized it yet. We're having a community volunteer day at the clothing bank on a Saturday, which is great for people that can't come during the week. It'll be October 29th from 9 to 12. So if you're interested in that, just please reach out to Cassandra via the email that Kim put in the chat, because we'd love to have you there.
We'll put that in our weekly
Awesome.
e-newsletter, make sure that people know about it.
Thank you, Cheryl.
That will be great. Thank you, Cheryl. And
Thank you all so
all.
very much. I appreciate this time immensely. Thank you.
Next week, we will have Dr. Monica Gant from the Delaware Department of Education speaking about the amazing work that is going on to implement House Bill 198, which was passed by the Delaware legislature and signed by the governor earlier this year to ensure more inclusive American history education in Delaware public and charter schools, to incorporate meaningful Black history into the history that our students are learning. She's an amazing person. I've spoken with her extensively. She will share with us the achievements, the goals, the challenges, the work being done to address this critically important part of education for our students and our community. So I hope you'll join us next Thursday at 7. Thank you all.
Thanks so much.
Good night.
you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.